This week on Spouse-icidal Tendencies, we're diving into the story of Sharon Kinne, a Midwestern housewife with a deadly secret. By the age of 25, she'd been tied to multiple murders, sparked international headlines, and earned herself a reputation as one of the most elusive femme fatales in true crime history. Buckle up. This one's full of mystery, manipulation, and a whole lot of murder.
Some crimes are senseless, some are calculated, and some are so twisted they defy explanation. Welcome to Spouse-icidal Tendencies, where we unravel the darkest minds, the most chilling cases, and the crimes that haunt us long after the headlines fade. Listen close, because the truth is always more disturbing than fiction.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Spouse-icidal Tendencies. I'm Darrell. This is my wife, Valery.
Hi.
Guys, we are no longer 20 years old, and we learned that the hard way last night.
Yeah, we did. We're still learning.
So I think we're both going on about 3 hours of sleep and a full work day. Last night, we took our 12-year-old to his first rock concert.
Our newly 12-year-old.
Newly 12-year-old. So, yeah, it was a very long night. We got about 3 hours
look
of
here.
sleep.
Whoops, sorry. How about this? Did you know?
Okay.
They're about to get a little glimpse of what your life is like here. Okay. Did you know that Jace's birthday is the same day that Kurt Cobain died?
I did.
You've never mentioned that.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway.
Random facts with Valery.
Yes.
This is my morning every day at 5 a.m. This is the kind of shit I get.
When I learn things, you're the one that I want to share them with. You should feel so honored.
I do.
Okay.
So, we ready to get into this episode? Episode 5, guys. Wow. We ready to roll with it?
Yeah. I did want to do a little pre-warn that I've been having a little bit of trouble with my eyes the last few days.
Because you're getting old.
No, I was put on a medication that apparently makes your vision blurry, and I did not know that until being on the medication for several days, and I'm still working on getting it. Yeah, it's been really bad. So I had no near sight vision whatsoever. It's been so difficult the last few days, but it's mostly back, but I've got to really focus. So if I look like I'm staring at my computer, that's because I am.
Oh, look at those
looking at my notes.
eyeballs.
Okay, so this week? We're going to talk about Sharon Kinne.
Okay.
This one's really cool for a lot of reasons. One of the big reasons is this one takes place, partially, a big part of it, in Independence, Missouri.
Ooh, hometown story. Well,
yeah,
not hometown, but close to
just
home.
Down the road from us. Yeah. But yeah, this is actually I don't know. It's a really interesting one. I know that I had heard the story before, but I had never really deep dived into it the way that I did, and it's pretty interesting to know all this happened, right down the road.
Okay.
So you ready?
Yeah. Let's go.
Okay, so Sharon Kinne was born Sharon Elizabeth Hall, November 30th, 1939. She was born in Independence, Missouri, to Eugene and Doris Hall. They were members of the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Boy.
So, Mormons.
No judgment, just, yeah.
No, yeah. So this sect is now known as the Community of Christ. It's just a different denomination within the Church of Latter-day Saints. So when she was in junior high, her parents moved to Washington State and they lived there for a few years, but they came back to independence around the time that Sharon was 15 years old. In the summer of 1956, when Sharon was 16 years old, she met James Kinney at a church event. He was in town from Brigham Young University. He was 22 years old, and they kind of had a summer fling and dated until he returned back to school in the fall. He was studying to be an engineer. He was also born and raised in Independence. He told her when he went back that he wanted to keep in touch the whole time he was gone. Like they were crazy about each other. They wanted to keep in contact. And, back then they couldn't just text each other, long snail mail letters to each other. So not long after he gets back to Utah, he gets a letter from Sharon telling him that she was pregnant. He was a devout Mormon, and babies out of wedlock, it is completely against his religion. So, of course, I think you probably know what comes next.
How do they feel about sex out of wedlock then?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was 22 years old and she was 16, so he's like a senior in college and she's still in high school.
Yeah, you knew that was coming, bro.
Yeah, his parents weren't too fond of her, being that she wasn't strictly in Mormon the way that he was. I don't know if he was just like a different denomination, but she ended up converting for him, and they moved back together to Utah so that he could finish school. Not long after they got to Utah, Sharon had a miscarriage. I don't want to speculate, but her dream had always been to get out of Independence, and she found her way. So was she pregnant, or did she just say she was pregnant to, get herself a husband and a trip out of Independence?
Either way, she figured it out.
Right? She did end up getting pregnant, though, shortly after, and in 1957, she gave birth to her first child, a daughter named Dana. James ended up dropping out of school because having, a wife and a kid and trying to work and support his family, it was too much. So he decided to go ahead and drop out, and they would just move back to Independence where they had family and they had help. Sharon was not happy. She's like, I just finally got out, and now here we go back.
Screwed my plan up.
They ended up building a house next door, like a ranch style house next door to James's parents. They were very strict Mormons. They did not care for Sharon. They said that they didn't believe that she was a true woman of their faith since she had only recently converted. But
girl's the devil.
Yeah, pretty much. They may not have been so far off.
Shit. All right, then.
In 1959, Sharon gives birth to a baby boy. His name was Troy. At this point, their marriage kind of starts to go to shit. Like, they're talking about getting a divorce, and James ends up having an affair with an old fling. He said he was sick of her spending. He wasn't happy anymore. He wanted out. Sharon ends up finding out that he's having an affair, and it kind of creates more tension. It's unknown whether James knew for sure or not, but even though Sharon's making him feel like shit because she finds out that he's having an affair, she's doing the same thing. She ended up meeting up with all kinds of guys, I think is how it started, just kind of sleeping around, doing what she wanted to do. And then she ends up having a full-blown affair with old high school boyfriend named John Boldis. She was just, more time went on, she was miserable. She was back where she didn't want to be. Her marriage was falling apart. Her in-laws couldn't stand her. Money was tight. She decided that the best thing would be to divorce James, but how was she going to do that? Because she wasn't working. She lived in his house at his parents' land. Like, she was going to need something to be able to start over. She basically told him, I will agree to a divorce if I can have the kids, the house, and $1,000 to get me started while I find a job. So he didn't want to answer her right away. He went to his parents to talk to them, kind of see what their opinion was on the situation. And basically they told him, like they didn't like her. They had made it obvious that they did not like her. But when you marry someone, you have children with that person, you make it work. So he decided, okay, I'm going to try to do this. March 19th, 1960, when Dana was 2 years old and Troy was 10 months old, they were getting ready to go to a church event. James wasn't feeling very good and he was tired. He decided he was going to kind of lay down, get a little power nap in before they left. And Sharon went in the bathroom to get ready. According to Sharon, she heard Dana come into the room and say, Daddy, how does this thing work? And then the next thing you know, she hears a bang.
Shit.
She runs out of the bathroom into the bedroom and she finds James laying in the bed bleeding from his head. Her 2-year-old daughter is standing next to him and there's a gun laying on the pillow. He had been shot in the back of his head and he was pronounced dead at the scene at 25 years old. When the police got there, obviously they questioned Sharon and she was very visibly upset. Like they didn't have any question that, what she told them was what happened initially, because she obviously was upset. She didn't seem like she had been involved in any way. They didn't have any reason to question it. They did also kind of try to talk to Dana, but she was 2, so they could only kind of get basic answers. The grip on the gun had been recently oiled, so they couldn't check for fingerprints. They didn't test Dana or Sharon's hands for gunpowder residue because they were afraid it was going to just further upset them. This is back in the back before, it's in the 60s. They don't have the same.
When you could actually get away with murder.
It took longer to do these kind of tests and stuff. So it's kind of up to them if they wanted to go through it or if they wanted to put the witness through it or whatever. And they just decided it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
But they did do their investigation. They talked to people that knew the family, people, neighbors, friends and stuff. And they were told that James often did let Dana play with the gun, which is just wild to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't even justify it. I wish she's 2 years old.
Terrified of guns.
Huh?
I said you being just terrified of guns in general.
Well, I mean, that too, but I have respect for them and I think that kids, that people should learn how to use them, but a 2-year-old.
Maybe not a 2-year-old.
Yeah, there's no way she's going to comprehend proper
Shit
gun
was different
safety.
in the 60s.
That's for sure. So the lead investigator on this was starting to get a little suspicious of Sharon's story. He didn't think that it made a whole lot of sense that a 2-year-old could pull the trigger on this gun. They ended up bringing her into the station and talking to her again. They laid a gun on the table just like the one that had killed her dad to just kind of see, how she was around it, if she wanted to, and they told her, you could play with this. And she did end up picking it up a few times and did show that she was able to pull the trigger. So, that wasn't enough for them to change their mind at that point. That, it wasn't exactly what Sharon had said it was, and they ended up, ruling his death an accidental homicide.
I feel like this story might be where public service announcements came from. Remember those commercials when we were kids?
Just don't play with guns.
This might be where they came from. My God, people, get your shit together.
Yeah. So yeah, they didn't have anything to disprove that it wasn't an accident. So they put his death down as an accidental homicide and kind of moved on. He did have a life insurance policy. It was worth $29,000, which with inflation at this point would be roughly $315,000. It's a pretty big life insurance policy for a 25-year-old. Just saying. So about a month after he passed away, she cashed in on that. The investigators and even kind of people around town were a little suspicious of her, but they didn't have enough to go on. So everybody was kind of keeping an eye. The neighbors, just people around town, the investigators. She did try to get the gun back from the police, and they never ended up giving it back to her. They kept it as evidence, but she did end up having a friend go buy her one, some male friend, I don't know who, but to go buy her a gun. So April 18th, 1960, she bought her dream car, a blue Ford Thunderbird, from a 23-year-old married car salesman named Walter Jones. Walter was married to a woman named Patricia. She was one of 6 children born to Mr. and Mrs. Elmer Clements of St. Joseph, Missouri. Walter and Patricia were high school sweethearts. They married directly after graduating high school. And at that time, like right out of high school, Walter joined the Marine Corps and relocated his family to the West Coast while he served. So when he gets out of the service, they move their family back to Missouri and they end up settling down in Independence. Patricia worked as a file clerk for the IRS while Walter sold cars. Walter was kind of known for having a bit of a wandering eye, and he liked what he saw that day when Sharon came in to buy the car, and they pretty much immediately started having an affair. Sharon was crazy about this man. She saw him as a potential partner, like a husband, but, obviously there's a little bit of a problem
Somebody else
there.
did too.
Right. He's somebody else's husband. And he told her, that he wasn't really happy. Their marriage had its issues, but he wasn't willing to get a divorce. In May, Sharon ended up inviting Walter on a trip to Washington, and he ended up turning her down. So she took her brother Eugene instead. She got back May 25th. And when she got back, she went to Walter and let him know that she was pregnant with his child. She thought maybe this meant that he would leave his wife and that they could, marry and be together and raise their child. But instead, it ended up turning into a fight and he ended the affair with her.
Yeah, that never works out.
Yeah. So that was May 25th. May 26th, Patricia did not come home from work. Walter ended up filing a missing persons report pretty much right away and then kind of started on his own investigation. He ended up getting a hold of her coworkers and found out by talking to them that she had actually received a call that day from an unknown woman who wanted to meet up with her so that they could have a conversation. So she was in a carpool group at work, and whenever she went to leave work, she asked them to drop her off at this street corner. There was a light blue Chevy truck there with a woman driving, and she got in to the truck with the woman and they drove away. Prior to this, Walter had kind of just thought that maybe she was mad at him and she was staying with a friend or something, because they had apparently also got into it the night that he broke things off with Sharon. So he was just trying to kind of give her space. But then when he hears that she gets into a car with a woman in a light blue, and that it's a light blue Chevy, he immediately calls Sharon. Yeah. Because that's what her dad drove. So he was automatically suspicious. He called her and he said, was that you that was seen talking to my wife? She said that it was her, that she had met up with Patricia and told her that Walter was having an affair and that he was sleeping with her sister, as in Sharon's sister. So she's like, hey, your husband's having an affair with my sister. She said that they kind of just drove around talking about things for a little bit, and that she ended up dropping her off a block from their house. And she said that whenever she dropped Patricia off, that she had walked up to a man in a dark green car and began to talk to him before she drove away. She reassured Walter, she's like, she's probably just angry and she needs her space because, now she knows you were having an affair. Well, this wasn't enough for him. He decided that he was going to go talk to Sharon in person. He even admitted that he had a key that he held to her throat and basically threatened her and told her she needed to give him information about where his wife was because he knew that she had to have known some. So later, in her testimony about this, Sharon admitted to calling John Boldis, the man that she had been having an affair with previously, and asked him to come help her look for Patricia, since Walter thinks that she's involved and he yelled at her. She's like, well, I'm going to prove him wrong. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to find her. So shortly before midnight, Sharon and John end up finding the body of a woman in a secluded area roughly a mile outside of the city limits of Independence. Boldis later said that he was the one who suggested they search the area where they were searching when they found her because it was somewhere that he and Sharon had gone on dates before. The body was dressed in a black sweater and a yellow skirt and was quickly identified as being Patricia Jones. The fatal wound was a gunshot wound to her head through her mouth. She had also been shot in the abdomen and down through her shoulders. She had powder burns on her skirt, which told investigators that the gun had been fired from close range for at least one of these shots. It was determined that Patricia's time of death was somewhere around 9 p.m. on May 26th. Sharon, Walter, and John were immediately questioned by the police. May 28th. Both the men wrote statements and signed them. They both admitted to dating Sharon and that they, had affairs with her. They agreed to take a lie detector test. Sharon gave a verbal statement that she refused to sign. She refused to do any kind of a written statement. And she refused to do a lie detector test. They questioned her again on the 30th. Were you going to say something?
I was say that doesn't look guilty.
No, not at all. They questioned her again on the 30th and Boldis again on the 31st. June 1st, Walter and John both took lie detector tests and they passed. The police were heavy searching the area to kind of get some more, where they found the body, to kind of get some more clues about what might have happened. They even had a troop of Boy Scouts apparently helping them, like sifting through the dirt and stuff there to see if they could find shell casings.
And the Eagle Scouts.
Right. Eventually, they did end up finding a single .22 caliber rifle casing. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I missed that word.
What are you talking about? What is it? Is that what it's called? You're the true crime expert here.
I am not the gun expert or the ammunition expert. So I make myself sound like an idiot trying to talk about guns. But anyway, that basically proved that at least one of the shots had been fired where her body was found. They continued searching the area. They even drug like all the bodies of water in the area, and the gun that was used to kill Patricia was never located. May 31st at 11 p.m., the night of Patricia's funeral, Sharon was arrested for her murder. That same day, the sheriff's department had requested that the prosecutors also consider her for the death of her husband.
Starting to see some patterns.
Yeah. June 1st, Sharon's lawyers filed a writ of habeas corpus, and through that hearing, she was bonded out on a $20,000 bond. You know anything about habeas corpus?
I don't.
It's basically like they're holding her unlawfully. Like they didn't have enough to keep her, especially without having a bond. So they did end up not just letting her go, but they give her a bond. So she got out for $20,000 bond. Her preliminary hearing was set for June 16th. June 2nd, Walter was arrested as a material witness and bonded out on a $2,000 bond. So her husband, Patricia's husband. July 11th, Sharon was arraigned and was denied bail. So that time she got out on bail, on a $24,000 bond. And that was July 18th. So she, at this point, is very far along pregnant. By the way, she was not lying. She was pregnant with Walter's baby. Yes. Okay. So that kind of delayed her trial a little bit. She ended up giving birth to her daughter, Marla Christine, on January 16th, 1961. The trial for the murder of Patricia Jones began mid-June 1961. The prosecution ended up resting on June 21st after calling 27 witnesses. The defense only took 2 days and had 14 witnesses. Sharon was not one of them. She did not testify for herself. So basically, the defense had argued that Sharon had no reason to kill Patricia. They pointed out that they couldn't even prove that the gun killed her belonged to Sharon. The jury ended up deliberating for an hour and a half before coming back and saying that they felt that the prosecution left too many loopholes and Sharon was acquitted of Patricia Jones's murder.
And they never found the gun that killed her, right?
They didn't.
Okay.
Directly after the verdict was read, one of the jurors actually asked Sharon for her autograph. And she gave it to him.
Of course she did.
So she was returned to jail at that time because she still had the trial for the murder of her husband. So she was acquitted of that, but she's not free.
One down, one to go.
Right. Well, I don't know if I'd want to say it that way, but as far as she's concerned, one down, one to go. Like the state,
Yeah.
Really maybe dropped the ball on that one. The murder trial for James Kinney began January of 1962. The jury learned during John Boldest's testimony that Sharon had asked him several times to kill James or to have James killed. And that ended up kind of backfiring for the prosecution, having him as a witness, because at one point he said, it might have been a joke. Maybe she didn't really mean it. The prosecution leaned heavily into the idea of her, trying to hire a hitman. That's kind of what they went on there.
Yeah.
There are other reasons, there are other motives that they had for Sharon wanting to kill her husband. The marriage was already a mess between infidelity and money problems, and they were on the brink of divorce. But instead of getting a divorce, if he were to die, she gets life insurance. So, the defense basically argued that the prosecution's entire case was based on circumstantial evidence and that the prior investigation had found James' death obviously accidental. So, they said they've already went through all this. They decided that it was definitely an accident. Like, why are we here? Yeah, they argued that while she may,
I would say they definitely did all they could to look into that.
Right.
On the front end, yeah.
They argued that basically, like, Sharon may not be the most morally sound person, but that doesn't mean she's a murderer. She might make some bad choices. She might be a cheater and a liar and, but that doesn't mean she's a murderer.
Right.
They attacked John Boldest's testimony, claiming him to be unreliable. He was just a poor, mixed-up kid who would sign anything. They made it known to the jury that Dana had often been allowed to play with guns, and that they had even proved that she was capable of pulling the trigger. January 11th, after 5.5 hours of deliberation, Sharon was convicted of the murder of her husband and sentenced to life in prison.
Got her.
So she began her sentence at the Missouri Reformatory for Women. Believe it or not, James' parents actually stood behind Sharon in all this. They did not believe that Sharon had murdered their son.
That's a step up from the old in-laws.
They're the same in-laws.
Oh, that's the same in-laws.
Yeah, she only had one set of in-laws. This was,
James's
right. Parents.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know what happened there, like, because they hated her and then they stood behind her. The following week, after beginning her sentence, Sharon's attorneys had requested that she be let out on bond, bringing in a petition with 132 signatures that believed Sharon to be innocent. The judge basically laughed in their face, like, you got convicted of first-degree murder.
Right.
that's not a bailable offense. We can't, we can't do that. And basically,
but all these people think that you should be able to do that.
Right. But he told her attorneys, like, this was wildly inappropriate, highly improper for them to waste their time and the court's time getting these signatures and bringing this in front of him.
Nice try, guys.
At another point, the defense filed a motion to vacate her conviction, saying that there was no real evidence for them to have ever found her guilty on. That was denied in July of 1962. They then appealed it to the Missouri Supreme Court, and the conviction was overturned in March of 1963, and they were going to send it back to trial. In May of 1963, she attempted to get out on bond, but was denied. 2 months later, they ended up overturning that, and she was released on a $25,000 bond that was paid for by her brother, Eugene. So what is that? It's like 20, 24, 25. How many thousands of dollars now bonding her out of jail? So the second trial for the murder of James Kinney began March 23rd, 1964. Days into the trial, a mistrial was declared based upon a conflict of interest between a juror and a prosecutor. The third trial began June 29th, 1963. John Bold's testimony in this trial was also a little iffy, based on the same as before. Like, he's like, I don't know if she really wanted me to do it. Like, maybe she was joking. But this time he did add that after James had died, Sharon had come to him and asked him to not tell anybody about the offer that she had made him previously. So there was that. So the trial ended with the all-male jury deadlocked 7-5 in favor of acquittal. This resulted in the second mistrial.
My God.
So the fourth trial for the murder of James Kinney was set to begin October 1964. In September of 1964, Sharon, while out on bond, took off to Mexico with her lover, Francis Samuel.
You got it. Come on.
Puglisi?
Puglisi?
Maybe. The couple said later that they had gone to Mexico to get married.
Watch out, but
right. Per her bond conditions, she was allowed to leave the country, but the contract with the bondsman had prohibited this without written permission from one of the agents at the bond company. While they were in Mexico, they actually checked into a hotel as husband and wife. Sharon left from the hotel and went and purchased a gun because she felt unsafe in a foreign country. On September 18th, Sharon ended up leaving the hotel room by herself. She was either going to get money or medicine. I'm not sure. I saw both. She met while out Francisco Adones at a bar. She ended up going back to his hotel room with him at Hotel Levada. Sharon said that the reason that she had gone back with him was because he was a photographer and he wanted to show her some photos.
God.
We just had the conversation about all these, somebody's always wanting to take pictures. Show somebody their pictures, take pictures of them.
Yeah, it does seem to be a theme in these stories.
It does. When they got back to the room, he started to make some unwanted sexual advances towards her, and she had told police that she was forced to fire her gun to protect herself. She continued to say throughout the entire thing that she never meant to hurt or kill Francisco. She just wanted to scare him.
Bullet.
Right. Enrique Martinez Rueda heard the gunshot. He was an employee at the hotel. He came running into the room, and as soon as Sharon saw him, he shot him in his shoulder.
Jesus.
So he locked the door, locked her in the room, and ran away to call the police. When they got there, they did not believe her story. They believe that when she left the hotel that night, that she left with her gun with the intention to rob somebody. And when it didn't turn out the way that she wanted to, she killed him. So she was arrested on charges of homicide and assault with a deadly weapon. Through the entire thing, she maintained, I didn't mean to hurt him. I just wanted to scare him. She said that the reason that she had shot the hotel employee was because when he came running into the room, she was sure he was going to attack.
Yeah, of course.
The police ended up searching her purse. They found a gun and 50 cartridges, and then 2 more guns and more cartridges in her and Francis's room. Her boyfriend was taken into custody. Initially, he was being held with no charge, but then they later filed the charges of entering the country illegally and carrying an unlicensed gun. So ballistics later proved that the gun that he had that was unlicensed was the gun that had killed Patricia Jones. And there was nothing that they could do at this point because she had been acquitted.
God.
So
Was this
they
lady
were
a gambler? Because she probably should have been.
She was arraigned. They were both arraigned in Mexico. So now they're in jail in Mexico, September 26th, and they were held for trial. That trial ended up beginning summer of 1965.
They do trials?
So
I've heard that's not everything I've seen about Mexican prisons, that's not a real fair situation most of the time.
yeah, I don't know. Her boyfriend ended up cleared of all the charges against him, and they deported him back to the United States. Sharon was convicted October 18th and sentenced to 10 years in a Mexican prison.
Shit.
She decided she was going to appeal, and she earned herself 3 extra years.
She got extra time for filing an appeal?
When she went back to trial, the charges that she had of attempted robbery were actually overturned, but they added 3 more years because they felt like her sentence had been too light, 10 years for murder.
Shit.
So yeah, that worked out well in her favor. Yeah. So in prison, Sharon ended up giving the nickname La Pistolera. And that's what the Mexican press began to call her as well. So December 7th, 1969, she's been in prison, 4 years now. When they went to do roll call, Sharon was not present that evening. But they didn't note it at that time officially. I don't know why.
Why?
I mean, maybe, it was the 60s. Things were different. Then later that evening, she was not present for another roll call. And then that's when they're like, maybe we should look into this.
She's let herself out.
For whatever reason, her escape from the prison did not get reported to Mexican police until 2 p.m. the following day. So a manhunt was organized focusing on the northern part of Mexico, as authorities believe she may have been headed to the last known whereabouts of a former inmate that she had become close to in the Mexican prison. They think that she may have bribed the guards to help her to escape. There was an unusual blackout that was reported that night around the time that it was believed that the escape took place, and a door that should have been locked was left unsecured.
Is bribed the right word? Or wasn't manipulated?
Well, there's some other theories that she may have had a boyfriend that was was a Mexican policeman.
No,
and he may have helped. There are theories that her mother may have helped her. They've also said that maybe there was a former Mexican Secret Service agent and that she may have dressed like a man to be able to escape. So those are just some of the theories on how she was able to get out.
Okay.
So she went missing December 7th. By December 18th, the manhunt was off. They believe that the Mexican police believe there was no reason to further search Mexico. They were sure that she had fled to Guatemala. So she was fluent in Spanish. She'd been in a Mexican prison for years. So basically she was bilingual enough that wherever any Spanish speaking country, she would be fine.
Yeah.
Investigators vowed to keep the case open and the investigation running until she was back in custody. But later they admitted by the end of December, they had run out of leads. They had nothing to go on. So there's really nothing to do at that point. So she was supposed to show up to court in Missouri, October 26, 1964. But since she didn't show up because she was actually in prison in Mexico at the time, the bond company the court revoked her bond, and then the bond company was actually forced to forfeit the bond. And that day, October 26, 1964, a warrant was issued, and it became the longest outstanding murder warrant to exist in the Kansas City area.
Wow.
Sharon's status in the Mexican system was also still outstanding. At the time of her escape, it was not against the law in Mexico to escape from prison. So,
wait, what?
Right. So basically, if they found her, she would go back into the jail. She would serve out the rest of her 13 years. And then, as far as Mexico was considered, she was done.
Well, maybe I was completely wrong about what I've heard about Mexican prisons. It sounds like they're very just.
Just? Maybe a little
Right
too
word?
nice?
Yeah, I mean...
I don't know that just is
okay,
the correct...
that was probably
how many
the right
people
word.
does this woman have to kill to get
Right.
some time?
Yeah.
So December...
they seem very fair.
Huh?
You
think they seem fair? That's insane.
No.
You escape from jail and you get no punishment for that. That's fair to you?
That was a sarcastic fair.
Okay, I'll give you that then. There's no way you're meaning the words that you're saying right now.
How long have you known me?
I mean...
read the room. I'm a sarcastic asshole.
I'll give you that.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to fast forward a few years. December 2023. Jackson County Sheriff's Office and the KCPD, Kansas City Police Department, both received an anonymous tip that Sharon had been living in Taber, Alberta, Canada, under the name Deidre Glavis. So Sharon married her second husband, James Thomas Glavis, in LA in February of 1970. The couple moved to Taber, in Canada, where they operated a motel and later a real estate agency. Sharon's face was posted in the papers all over for her real estate business. You know, probably benches with her face on it, buses with her face on it.
Yeah.
She was not hiding. To this day, it's unknown. Like, how did she get a travel visa, ID, citizenship in Canada?
Right.
Despite being a fugitive.
I just want to say, like, this lady's level of don't give a fuck. It's wild. It's impressive. Yeah, very impressive.
So her husband, Thomas Glavis, died August 11th, 1979. He was 38 years old from complications related to diabetes and alcoholism. She was left out of his will. March 1982, Sharon marries her third husband, Willie L. He died March 7th, 2011 at 79 years old. So they were together for quite a while.
So we had one that made it.
Sharon died January 21st, 2022 at age 82 due to Alzheimer's and coronary artery disease. So they found out about her in December of 2023. She had already been dead for almost 2 years at that point.
Shit.
So whenever they found...
It was just a random anonymous tip. Like, hey, this lady you guys have been looking for 40 years is living up in Canada.
40 years, dude. 60 years.
Was it? Oh,
she went missing in the 60s,
yeah, in the 60s.
And yeah.
That's crazy.
But they had no way at this point. Like, how are they supposed to prove that it was her, you know?
Yeah.
They ended up going to the funeral home that prepared her body. And I guess that part of their preparation is that they would take fingerprints from the bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, if anybody in the family or anything wanted to make jewelry or something with it, with the fingerprints, that they would have it. So that's how they were able to match them.
Okay.
So U.S. authorities announced January 17th of 2025 that Deidre Glabus was Sharon Kinne. And so the case was actually just closed in January of this year officially.
Wow.
When they verified that that's who she was. They're still searching. The investigators are still wanting answers to what exactly she was doing from 1969 until she died in 2022. She did end up leaving behind one son with Glabus. And then she had her 3 kids in the US. But there's not like a whole lot known for that time between 1969 and 2022. But like I said, she wasn't hiding. She was doing volunteer work, and she was a chairwoman for a daycare center community thing. She liked doing needlepoint and playing bridge. She was just like a normal old woman.
Out there living her best life, taking husbands out. My goodness. Well, that's a pretty wild story.
That's a pretty good one, right? And it's like
Lots
close.
of really impressive police work
Right.
involved with this
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, and that sounds like she's kind of master manipulator. She could
Yeah,
get
you guys
herself
are
out
good
about
at that
anything.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Feminine traits.
Whatever.
I'm just kidding.
I think that's it.
Okay.
We're gonna do another serial killer next week, since you can't.
Yeah.
Thank you. Probably gonna get him in there every few episodes, because
Yeah, you gotta give. I mean, I'm over here. I don't have a lot to say. I feel like I don't have a lot of input, which I guess is kind of the whole premise of our podcast. But I like to tell stories too. I know stuff.
Well, maybe sometime you'll have to tell me a story.
Yeah. I do. I actually have been working on that idea. I have a little brainstorming I've been doing.
Yeah, you've been doing lots of sneaky stuff that I don't find out until it's like ready to go. And
well, see, the thing is if I talk to you about it too early, you ask me questions and it stresses me out. So
okay, that's fair.
I got to get it lined out and
I mean, to be honest, like, if I don't know that you're working on something, when you bring it to me done, that's better for me too. Now, if I knew you were working on something but not talking to me about it, then I would be a little frustrated.
That would stress you out.
Yes, exactly. Like, I'm going to ask questions anyway now.
Yeah. You are full of questions.
Yes, I'm inquisitive.
Well, maybe we'll make an announcement next week on that idea I'm brainstorming.
All right.
I'm not ready to present it to you quite yet, so.
Okay, so you're going to make me be anxious about it for the next week?
Yes.
All right.
All right, but yes, on a serious note, guys, we've really been enjoying this. It's been a lot of fun. We're starting to get out there a little bit. We are on YouTube. We're on Spotify. I am in the works of getting it out there for all of you Apple Podcast listeners, so hopefully by next week's episode, I think I'm going to have everything set up for that, and we'll get it out there to everybody. So, if you guys know somebody that's into true crime, even if you don't, know anybody right offhand, if you're enjoying what we're putting out there, take 5 minutes, and maybe share the link to your favorite episode so far. Just anything we can do to get it out there. So, we want to grow the show. We're having fun. It gives us a reason to keep putting effort into this, So one thing I do want to do, we're gonna start something new this week. So on my journey into becoming a true crime addict, which is slowly starting to happen, you'll be
slowly.
Yeah, you'll be happy to know I actually listen to podcasts now.
Love it.
So I have been playing around with this idea. We want to basically do a spotlight, another show, another podcast. Some weeks it might be another podcast, it might be a book, it might be a something on Netflix, just anything, just, something to kind of shine some light on other people's works or other people's work. So I have stumbled upon in the last few months a podcast that I am a big fan of, and I've gotten my wife into them too. So
And I
this
don't
one,
know how I haven't found this because
I know
it
it's
was
so random that
right up my
yeah,
alley.
100%. Like as soon as I heard the first
Personalities, like
episode, when I heard their back and forth and just their, general everything about them, I was like, why does my wife
be
not
their
listen to this?
friends.
Yeah, like seriously, you guys are hilarious for starters anyway. So this week we have decided to pick a true crime obsessed podcast to spotlight. So this show is hosted by Patrick Hines and Jillian Pinsevale. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. One of the coolest things about their podcast is they make you laugh even when they're talking about some really dark things. They sprinkle in jokes, lighthearted comments that keep things fun and make it easy to listen to. Patrick and Jillian chat like old friends, so, it makes you feel like you're just hanging out with them. It's a lot of fun. Their chemistry and banter is very relatable. It kind of makes you feel like you're part of the conversation. From everything I've seen on their socials, they've got a very diehard fan base who absolutely adore them. I can see why. They're awesome. So
They're like 8 years in.
I know, it's impressive. Like I hope to be in that place someday, It's
And
really
I'm a binger. I think we do this different.
yes, for
But
sure.
when I start a podcast, I start at episode 1 and I listen through.
Yep.
So a few episodes in at this point.
I think we were both listening. You said you were listening to the episode about Kurt and Courtney today, which is
we're definitely going to have to do an episode on that.
So another fun fact about me, I am a musician and I am absolutely obsessed with music, everything about it. I grew up on Nirvana, absolutely love them. So this was a
read all the books and watched all the documentaries.
But yeah, it was obsessive at a point in time, but we don't need to get into that. So just wanted to take a couple minutes and just kind of shine some light out to another show that we're enjoying. So you guys are doing a great job. It's impressive, where you guys have come in the last 8 years. Hope you guys keep rocking with it. It's been fun. Eventually I'll catch up on all your episodes. Probably Valery will beat me to that. Yeah. Check out their website. Their website is really cool, by the way. Really impressive. But they're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and it looks like Google as well. Man, I got to get that together. I got to step it up here. I found these guys on Instagram Reels. Yeah, that's how I stumbled across the podcast. Anyway, all right, well, let's get this wrapped up. So,
yeah, I'm ready for bed.
Yes.
At midnight at a rock and roll show. Out till midnight at a rock and roll show.
I definitely feel like I'm 40 today.
Yeah.
So, all right,
but
guys.
You're not. Don't say that.
Getting real close, so.
You don't say that.
You don't say that. All right, guys. Well, we will hopefully see everybody again next week. And thanks for joining us. Yeah, we'll be here whether you are or not. So, you might as well come hang out.
Yes.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.
Bye. Next week on Spouse-icidal Tendencies, we're taking a dark turn down the I-5 freeway. Meet Randy Kraft, a seemingly ordinary guy with a terrifying double life. With a chilling kill count and a cryptic list of victims, this is one serial killer story you won't forget. Don't miss it.